It is now my pleasure to introduce a man who just happens to be running for public office. That is not the reason that he was invited here, and in fact he was invited in all sincerity, despite the fact that he was running for office. The Heartland Institute doesn't like elected officials, sorry Tony, with very few exceptions. So Dan, you're invited here until you get elected. Dan Proft is a political commentator for WLSAM 890 Radio in Chicago. He writes for Human Events and the Heartland Institute's own School Reform News. He's run numerous political campaigns and served in various leadership capacities in state and municipal government since 1994. Dan and some fellow conservatives launched IllinoisLeader.com, an online publication that covered Illinois politics and government. He serves as a board member for the Illinois chapter of Operation Homefront, and he has served in the past on the associate board of The Cradle, which is an Evanston-based adoption agency. I've known Dan probably for as long as the Heartland Institute has been around. He's a great guy, absolutely dedicated to principle. We're very pleased to have you with us today, Dan. Please welcome Dan.
Kind of in luck, or maybe I'm in luck, Joe, because after Sarpalis' comments, I'm announcing the end of my campaign. Man, tough room. At a recent event that campaign event, during some of the post-speech Q&A, I had the occasion to reference Milton Friedman and his ideas and the influence they had on me. I was talking about school choice. That was the issue that was raised. Anyway, I refer to Friedman as my favorite economist. And a doctor friend of mine came up after the speech and said, favorite economist? Who has a favorite economist? A favorite baseball player, a favorite movie, but a favorite economist? You must have had a very lonely So I say that because I want to thank you for calling me home to the mothership, where everybody in this room at least, understands the idea of having a favorite economist, and you get me, and I appreciate that. I didn't have the opportunity to study under Milton Friedman, and never had the chance to meet him. I guess since we're playing 6 Degrees of Friedman, I think the closest I came to technically meeting Murray Rothbard. So, but I am honored to have the chance to share his impact on my personal philosophy, my professional life, and my campaign for governor of Illinois. I want to take this opportunity to discuss how Friedman's ideas have influenced the principles and policies that inform my campaign for governor, with particular emphasis on what Joe was just talking about, education reform. But I want to offer a larger perspective first. Friedman's example, for me, is larger than simply subscribing to his view of government in a free society or his prescriptions for a particular policy area. It extends both to his approach and his attitude. His approach. In addition to being a technical economist and a public intellectual, Friedman was a historian. And if you ever saw the installments of Free to Choose that were discussed earlier, he was a journalist. He was something we don't see in the media today, with the possible exception of John Stossel. Friedman was an informed investigator. He tested his ideas, he drew conclusions and offered solutions to problems based on logical analysis and evidence. Thomas Sowell, another Friedman acolyte, has written that more frightening than any particular beliefs or policies is an utter lack of any sense of a need to test those beliefs and policies against hard evidence. Mistakes can be corrected by those who pay attention to facts. Dogmatism will not be corrected by those who are wedded to a vision. Friedman tested his beliefs, and it led him to change his mind from time to time, based on the evidence. He rejected the Keynesian New Dealism that he had at first embraced. He changed his mind about government antitrust prosecutions. He was willing to change his mind after thorough examination. And he was forever intellectually curious, and that's a talent. And few were more gifted with this ability. Because someone as intellectually gifted as Friedman was willing to change his mind, he was able to change the minds of tens of millions of people the world over. Attitude, fearless, passionate about ideas and policy. But most compelling for me was that he took on the bullies in government, in the teachers' unions, and anyone else who stood against freedom to protect the status quo that served them while subjugating others. I'm a big boxing fan, but nothing gives me a bigger adrenaline rush than watching the old Free to Choose episodes where Friedman dismantles Al Shanker or some other status guardian of government largesse. Which brings me to my campaign for governor. Instead of simply living vicariously through Milton Friedman's work, I thought it was about time to do some of my own, to take the fight to the established political order that runs Illinois and that has run it into the ground. Friedman relentlessly reminded us that the places in this world where the masses are worst off are those places where government is the biggest and most intrusive. So how's that for segueing to Illinois? Despite being only the fifth most populous state, we have more units of government and more elected officials than any other state in the nation. The results? Let's do what Milton Friedman would do. Look at the data. Well, Illinois is 48th in the nation in economic performance over the last decade, ahead of only Ohio and Michigan. We have the highest unemployment rate we've had in 25 years. We lost 175,000 private sector jobs in calendar year 2008 alone. Public sector headcount, status quo. 735,000 more people moved out of Illinois than have moved in the past decade. Only California and New York have suffered more out-migration than Illinois. So why is this happening to the transportation hub of the Midwest? A state with all the inherent advantages that Illinois possesses. The politicians in both parties tell you that Illinois is broken, that the state is broken, state government is broken. But Milton Friedman knew better. He was one of the first to explain how the fix is in. Friedman knew that the special interests understand this concept of concentrated benefits and diffuse costs. Friedman called them out. Government functionaries are by and large not incompetent. They are lying to you. That's the great insight that Friedman provided. They are selling things under the guise of social welfare that they know to be untrue. And so it's the case in Illinois. Illinois isn't broken, it's fixed. It's funny, I dropped that line on friends who live in other states, and they're like, Illinois is broken, it's fixed. It takes them a while to kind of get it. In this state, everybody gets it like that. But that's what I mean. Illinois state government is producing exactly what it is intended to produce. Secure jobs and guaranteed pensions for the public sector unions and other state dependents who in turn provide the political patronage armies that support and sustain the careers of the Chicago Democrats in charge. That's the game, that's the system, that's what state government's about. Mike Madigan, for example, a good example since he runs the show in this state. He is many things. Stupid is not one of them. He is not overwhelmed by current events. He is not huddled under his desk, not sure what to do next. The big ticket state governments in Illinois, state government systems in Illinois, are producing exactly what he desires them to produce. In fact, given their centralized structure, they are producing the only thing that they can produce. Illinois' economy isn't circling the drain because state government is broken. We are circling the drain because we have a public sector that is cannibalizing the private sector.